Good afternoon, everyone. How are you? That's my face on the screen. That's really cool. So good afternoon. I'm Mike Cully. I'm the Executive Director of the League of Oregon Cities, and I want to thank you, first of all, for coming to our Lunch and Learn today. I think it's going to be a great experience for all of you. The only price of admission for this one is the badges on your table. If you'll see the badges that look very much like this one, it says Let Cities Work. We'll explain that. But this is the theme of today's workshop. So to kick this off, I first of all want to recognize our sponsor. It is Walmart. They are an amazing partner with the League. I keep talking about public-private partnerships and how important those are, and Walmart is one of those partners that just makes things happen. In fact, we wouldn't be up here talking about this and able to put this on and feed you without Walmart. So without further ado, I want to bring up my friend Debbie Herron to talk about Walmart and their participation.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon. Okay, that's the Walmart spark that we like to hear. Well, thank you everybody for having me join you today. I do realize it's Friday after lunch, so I'm going to try to make brief remarks, but just tell you a few things that were on my mind as I've talked to people today in and around the conference. First and foremost, welcome to Friday's Lunch and Learn. I like lunch. I like to learn, so I thought this was a great topic. I hope you like lunch and also like to learn. And I'm going to be followed by some great people on the League of Cities staff, as well as some fantastic mayors and representatives that really do the hard work every day. I've had a chance to talk with a lot of you today, and I think many of you have seen our booth number 61, and we'd just like to give a shout out to our teams from Eugene and Springfield, Team Spark right over there. They joined me this week and have done a great job being on hand and sharing lots of information about their two stores. But I was just chatting with Tania from Central Point, and I hope I got that right. But Tania said, the thing I'd really like to know is what's under the hood? What is it about Walmart that makes Walmart Walmart? What's the culture like? What are the people like? What are the things that you think about every day? So I'm going to tell you about three things that are under Walmart's hood, so to speak. First, hashtag Team Spark. We really mean hashtag Team Spark. It's the spark in each of us that we bring to work with us each day that makes Walmart a great place to work. It makes it a great place for customers to come shop, and it helps us strive for excellence. Another thing is called hashtag This Is That Place, meaning we're an inclusive employer. We're an inclusive retailer. We have wonderful people who work for us from all over different types of lifestyles, different types of abilities or mobilities. We look at individuals with respect for that individual and who they are, what their story is, what their education is, and what their skills are that they can bring to the Walmart workplace. And we embrace that. We give folks opportunities to further their education if they haven't finished their high school or even gone to college. We give folks opportunities to be promoted. In fact, I'll point out to our team again, all three of the folks that have been here with me, Amy and Tori and Jamal, have all been with the company for more than 10 years. Jamal actually moved to Oregon, to Springfield in 2011 because there were more opportunities for him to promote in his retail career here in Oregon than there were in Northern California. And Tori and Amy both are in our academy. Academies give our associates an opportunity to learn on-the-job training when they've been newly promoted. They can come back to the academy and take more courses as their career moves forward. So we really are, this is that place that just wants folks who are willing to work, who would like a career, and to move forward with a long runway to come work for us. We also are very focused on something called hashtag Better Together. And in today's digital world, we have to speak in 140 characters, which I'm not doing right now. But we do need to think about how we talk about what we do in hashtags. And we are better together. Walmart means that literally. We are better when we're working together with our mayors and our city council members and city staff, whether we have a Walmart in your community or whether your citizens get their day-to-day needs from Walmart through walmart.com, jet.com, moosejaw.com, or any one of our other families of brands. We're better together when we can talk about homelessness, opioid prevention and abuse, when we can talk about veterans and what veterans communities needs. We're better together when we talk about employment and think about what people who are in the 18 to 24-year-old category in Oregon need and where they can come to work where they don't need to bring a lot of skills. And retail, and Walmart specifically, is one of those places. We're here to try to help solve some of those problems. We can't do it alone, you can't do it alone, but maybe working together and being better together, we can. We're also very focused on disaster relief and emergency preparedness. We're happy to partner with any of your cities or your city office of emergency management to make sure that if a disaster happens, when a disaster happens, Walmart can help be part of the solution. Just recently with Hurricane Florence, we donated over 300,000 pallets of water. We have folks that are doing fundraisers all over the community to raise money to send to the Foundation for the Carolinas, which is the foundation that's helping those people in need. It's a water event. Water damage lasts a long time. We also have one organization that we fundraise with at our point of sale, and that's Children's Miracle Network. And this year, well, with Children's Miracle Network this year, we're on track to have raised over $1 billion across the country for Children's Miracle Network. And thank you. I will pass that on, I really will, because it's not me, it's really our associates at the stores who engage our customers in that program. And I'm very pleased that we are working with the Ronald McDonald House at OHSU on a significant grant that will be a result of all of our stores in Oregon and the fundraising that they've done. So when you're at the register at Walmart and you say, yes, I'll donate, know that that money stays in Oregon. It's supporting families who come to OHSU for treatment, and we're making sure that children and their families are being taken care of in a time of need. So on behalf of our company, on behalf of the Walmart Foundation, our 11,000 associates across Oregon, we're proud to be part of League of Cities. We thank you for including us and for giving us the opportunity to be part of your conference. We thank each of you, the mayors, the city council members, the staff. I've been to many of your meetings. I know how late the nights go. I know how many hours you spend preparing, how thick the binders are for your meetings, and I know how many years you've had to spend on the campaign trail to be in the elective office that you have. Thank you for serving Oregon. Thank you for serving your communities. And if you haven't visited with our team, our sparkly team at the booth, please feel free to reach out to us at any time. Kevin and Mike know how to get a hold of me. I'll always take your question or your phone call, and happy to share with you anytime anything more about our company, about our debt-free education, our academy training, or what we can do for retail careers and jobs. So thank you. If we have time for questions, I'll take a question, but if not, I'm happy to let you get on with your agenda and the rest of your Friday. Thanks so much. Appreciate it.
We are better together, so hashtag great job. Hashtag thank you, hashtag you rock. I appreciate Walmart being a participant here today. So let me lay the ground rules and get this thing going. So this Lunch and Learn is based around the Let Cities Work moniker that we have adopted this year. And what that means to us is that we want to provide you with the tools and the support and everything that you need as a city to be successful. Now, we were founded back in 1925 by a handful of cities to provide advocacy and support for the cities, and we continue that mantra today. So this Let Cities Work is important. It's not just a saying that we or a slogan that we use. It's the way we're living our life at the League right now. So it's super important to us. If you're not wearing this badge, you need to have that badge on because we mean it, and that's where we're going this year. So the Let Cities Work campaign and what we're doing here today, I want you to think of it as more or less speed dating with regards to our legislative priorities. So on the table, you'll see the cards. They're all kind of color-coded. They look like this. This one is particular cost containment and PERS. With these, you're actually going to come up with stories of your own and how they relate to your communities, and we'll walk you through that a little bit. We're going to have a video overview of our priorities, and then member-led discussions around the tables where you're at now. So let's see. I think that's it. Let's just go to the video, and then we'll get rolling. So thank you.
Hi, I'm Scott Winkles, and I'm going to talk to you today about the League's mental health legislative priority. In 2015, the League prioritized mental health services out of a recognition that people who were suffering from these conditions were not getting the services they needed. We were seeing far too many negative police interactions. We were seeing people homeless on the streets who weren't in a condition to assist themselves, and we were seeing a system that was generally inhumane, and this was untenable to the city leaders across Oregon. In anticipation of a difficult budget year, the League's General Government Committee, its members through the balloting process, and its board of directors through a robust discussion again agreed that mental health services should be a priority for the League of Oregon Cities. The League will be asking the legislature to first preserve the instructor positions at the DPSST that were added in 2015, that's the police academy, to provide training to police officers to help them respond effectively and with compassion to persons suffering from a mental health crisis. We will also be asking to preserve, if not expand, grants provided to agencies for interdisciplinary teams that will proactively work with individuals in the field to keep them from going into a mental health crisis. We will seek to preserve mental health housing assistance to keep folks in a home. It's easier for us to deliver treatment to a person in a residence if they don't have that concern. And finally, we're going to seek to preserve, if not enhance, the number of mental health beds throughout the state of Oregon. In closing, what I will say is remarkable about the way this priority came about is that it was a priority across Oregon. There was no urban-rural divide. Cities in eastern and western Oregon agreed that this was priority. Highly urbanized cities and rural communities all recognize the problem, and we look forward to working with the legislature to bring about a more humane mental health system for this state.
Hi, I'm Wendy Johnson, the League's tax lobbyist. This year, a priority again will be tax reform. Why? Even in Oregon's growing economy, the costs of services are outpaced. Our revenues are not keeping up. What we need is the legislature to refer a constitutional amendment to fix some of its problems. Those problems are really focused on unfairness and limits that just don't work today, 20 years after 5 and 50 have passed. The problems with Oregon's property tax system really vary by city and community. For some, it may be compression. For others, it's a low permanent rate. For others, it's just significant unfairness. We need you to be able to tell the legislature what's happening in your community and ask them to help us fix it. We need cities to be able to work. Let us work. Oregon's property tax system is complex, and you may want to look at more resources. For that, I suggest you take a look at the League's Local Focus magazine from September of 2018. We have a spread on property tax reform. And second, we have a menu. That's a one-page menu of different solutions. As I've said before, not all solutions are created equal, but this menu will give you a list.
Hi, I'm Scott Winkles, and today I'm going to talk to you about PERS. I'm going to explain PERS in terms of a pretty simple algebraic equation. It's B meaning benefits, equals C meaning contributions, plus E meaning earnings. And the League's legislative priority is going to take a look at each component of that equation. First, we're going to look at the benefits portion of the equation and try to restore what we call generational equity to the system. So we bring longer-term employees, Tier 1, Tier 2, in line with the benefit systems offered under the third tier. The second thing we're going to take a look at is the contributions. How much money are we putting into this system? So that'll take shape in a couple of different ways, possibly looking at some state bonding options and fully capitalizing the employer incentive fund that was created in 2018 that'll help employers with their match their side accounts. And the last thing we'll look at is the earnings and make sure that we have the most efficient and robust earnings system possible so that we're not spending dollars that should be going into the fund to outside contractors. If we don't take these steps, what we anticipate is that PERS rates will continue to climb over the next 2 biennium, topping out at possibly close to 30% of total pay rates as an average, system-wide average, and stay there for the foreseeable future. We look forward to continuing this discussion, and I hope to see all of you at City Day at the Capitol, where we get to present this agenda to legislators.
Hi, I'm Erin, the League's lobbyist on housing, here to talk to you about our housing and homelessness priority. Across the state, we're seeing an increase of the number of homeless people on our streets in our cities. And in addition, we're seeing an insufficient number of housing units being developed to meet the needs of all citizens. These issues are driven by similar but separate concerns. One of the things that we need more assistance with is planning for more housing so that units can go up faster and be more affordable across the board, which will help with some of the homelessness issues. But the homeless have a different set of issues that can't just be addressed by increasing the number of units of housing. Therefore, the League is going to be seeking more assistance and less barriers to the development of housing and to getting the homeless off the street. In particular, we're seeking more money towards housing planning, more increase in wraparound services for the homelessness, so those that are homeless that get housed can stay in housing with their services that they need to take care of their issues, and other tools that will assist cities in making plans to see success in both more housing development and decrease homelessness on our streets.
Hello, Tracy Rutten with the League of Oregon Cities, here today to talk to you about our 2019 legislative priority on public infrastructure. In 2016, the League conducted a survey of our members to better understand the infrastructure needs of cities across the state of Oregon. The results came back, and to say the least, they were very compelling and demonstrated a significant need in infrastructure that will require the state and local governments to partner together, roll up their sleeves, and find solutions. Our survey took a look at infrastructure needs over the next 20 years for both water supply and water quality projects, as well as transportation. Transportation needs identified in the League's survey totaled $3.7 billion. As many of you probably know, the Oregon legislature passed a $5.3 billion transportation package during the 2017 session. The League worked hard to support that effort, and we are incredibly grateful to the legislature for their work to get that done. The survey identified $7.6 billion for water supply and water quality related infrastructure needs for the next 20 years. That number reflects 120 cities that responded to our survey out of Oregon's total of 241 cities, so the need is even greater. Something else that stood out in the survey was the per capita needs when you look at city populations. Cities with a population less than 450 are facing per capita needs of $10,600 per person for water infrastructure. For cities with a population of less than 1,250, the need was just over $4,700 per person. In addition, we have significant needs to ensure that these water systems are more resilient. That includes creating water infrastructure that is more seismically resilient and ensuring that our communities have access to emergency water distribution systems that may be required due to drought, natural disasters, or potential drinking water contamination events. We can't tackle this issue alone. We're asking for the state's help to pass a funding package that will help us address this significant need. Invest with us and let cities work.
Hello, friends. This is Craig Honeyman, Legislative Director for the League of Oregon Cities. With the onslaught of activity as a result of new small cell and 5G technology, there's been lots of activity, especially in front of the Federal Communications Commission with federal regulatory activity, federal legislation in the United States Congress, and almost certainly state legislation to be sponsored by service providers in this very building in the state capitol in 2019. And it seems that the basis for all of this is the presumption that cities are the main reason for the lack of broadband deployment and the creation of the so-called digital divide. This is simply not true. Cities need this technology for economic development, for education, the provision of medical and health services, and to generally communicate and do business with their citizens. But cities also have the responsibility to manage facilities held in the public trust, such as rights-of-ways. Rights-of-ways which afford private utilities easy and cost-effective access to property for purposes of positioning their equipment. But as a result of all this firepower being directed at cities, the League of Oregon Cities Board of Directors made the decision to make preservation of right-of-way and franchise fee authority and increased investment in broadband deployment one of the League's top legislative priorities for 2019. So we are asking to let cities work by having the League's legislative advocacy team continue to oppose preemption of local authority to manage public rights-of-way and to set rates of compensation for the use of those rights-of-way. Also, to seek additional state support and funding and for increased and equitable broadband infrastructure deployment, especially in rural areas where markets and rates of return are not as attractive to private providers. And finally, to oppose any legislative effort to restrict municipal authority to provide its own broadband services. So let's let cities continue to work individually with broadband service providers to negotiate terms and conditions that are mutually acceptable.
Hi, I'm Erin, the League's lobbyist on building codes issues. This year, one of our priorities is ensuring that cities can continue to use third-party building officials and inspectors in their local programs. Starting in 2017, we've been working with various stakeholders to try and assure that specialized inspectors could continue performing inspection services even if they're hired by a private contractor. In that debate, it turned out there was a question as to whether or not it was legal if third-party building officials could service cities' programs. Our goal in 2019 is to clarify that that is in fact permissible. Cities have been using third-party inspection services and building officials to have an efficient, well-run program that reaches smaller communities that are difficult to service otherwise. We've been very successful over the 40-plus years we've been using this model, and we'd like to continue to see it move forward in the future. So in 2019, we will be clarifying that cities of all sizes can use third-party building officials and inspectors to perform these services at the local level.
Thank you very much. As you saw from the video, I'm Scott Winkles with the League of Oregon Cities. I've been your lobbyist for about 12 years now, and it's my privilege to be your advocate on the subject of mental health. You'll see a card at your desk. I can't really tell in the lighting. I think it's beige. It looks purple up here with this, but I think it's beige. And what we're going to ask is that you tell us a story as to why mental health is important to your city. What you heard, we can talk about this from a statewide level. The lobby team, we're comfortable talking about this from a broad level, but what we really need to hear is that individual story. And to help do that, we're going to invite Mayor Truax up onto the stage to explain why mental health is important to Forest Grove. Mayor Truax.
There's a joke screaming to get out there. You know, one of the things about the discussion of how can mental health help Forest Grove, I don't want to hear my council saying we elect a new mayor. But the point that I'm trying to make here is that mental health reaches across the spectrum in so many ways in our city of Forest Grove. First of all, it impacts our law enforcement. When we have peace officers that are involved in mental health crisis and they become the first contact for a person suffering that particular crisis, something's screwed up in our system. We need to get social workers, we need to get training, we need to get people as ride-alongs that can help that peace officer make that kind of treatment, that kind of moving a person in that situation into an area where they can get the help that they so dearly need. That's one area. Another area is in education. When a student who has mental health issues, maybe because they're in a family that is fractured or in danger of being fractured, or if they're in a family that has lost their home and they are couch surfing, when that student is in school and has all of those things on top of it, Maslow's hierarchy comes into play. The student's going to be worrying about where they're going to be living next, where they're going to get their next meal. They're not going to be worrying about parsing sentences or telling the teacher which Shakespearean character said a plague on both your houses. So that's the second part. The third one is transportation. We have people that use transportation to move from point to point, to get their jobs, to get from home to work and back again, to get to the doctor. We need to be able to improve transportation in our city so that we can get those people to the treatment that they need in a timely fashion. And obviously, the last part is medical treatment. We need to get those people the treatment that they so dearly and so need so importantly. And the city can play a role in that, along with the state, along with county government, and across the system. This can truly be a public-private partnership. Forest Grove has worked not only with Washington County, but has also worked with neighboring cities, has also worked with Tuolumne Healthcare, with Oregon Health Sciences University in trying to put together this kind of program. We have to attack this scourge on our economy, we have to attack this scourge on our environment, and we have to attack this scourge on our sense of social justice. It's the right thing to do. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Truax. We're going to give you a couple minutes here to fill out your card, to write down your story. So what we're looking for really is, what does this feel like in your city? Was there an incident maybe where someone didn't get the help they needed, or you know of a scenario that could have been helped by a more robust mental health delivery system? Give you a little bit to write those down. Okay, we're going to move on to our next topic. Time is up. I won't say pencils down. It's not the SAT. But we're going to move on to our next priority, and that's cost containment. And cost containment right now, we're really looking at PERS reform. Here's the thing. I can tell you what the system-wide rate average is, and I can tell you what's going on with earnings. I can tell you any number of things about the system overall. Let's cut to the chase. The system-wide rate average is high. But what I can't tell you tell the legislature readily, is what's going on in Sherwood, what's going on in Grants Pass, what is the impact of this having on the delivery of services and the quality of life in one of Oregon's communities. And so we're going to ask that you explain what's the impact of PERS on your city. What is that local impact? And to help us out with this one, we'll have Mayor Doyle from the city of Beaverton. Enjoy.
And I just heard a confession from Mayor Truex that he went way over his time. But I didn't know that until you fessed up, but I'll try to behave. You know, this PERS subject has been haunting cities in all levels of government for many, many years. Obviously, that's not a big secret. So every morning when I'm at home, I have a bowl of cereal, and then I have toast, and then I think of PERS. Okay, in Beaverton, they're really limiting our ability to protect public and private citizens, the ability to provide basic services that we all need to deliver to our customers. Our opportunities to invest in our community continue to be limited by the expense of PERS. Our ability to respond to the housing and homeless crisis is limited. Our ability to respond to the economic development opportunities that do appear to attract potential employers will be limited because of the decisions that were made in the 70s, 80s, and 90s. Let that sink in. We're talking stuff 40 plus years old. And to put this into perspective now, a child born today who goes to public schools, use public parks, graduates from a community college, will have every one of those public services limited because of the money that continues to be taken away for PERS. And, you know, sadly, as we all know actuarially, it's going to take about 20 years for that problem to slowly but surely go away. There are hard choices we have to make to resolve the situation. We need to recognize that we have to get our fiscal houses in order. We need to share our pension costs with our employees. We need to find a way to allow for retirees who are receiving over 100% of their salary in retirement. I know that's a limited number, but it is a challenge. And we need to make sure we're putting more money into our budgets from wherever we can find it to fund the liability. Amen. Thank you.
Orange card on your desk, so just we'll give you 3 minutes to write down your local story on this legislative priority. Want to start the shot clock now? Okay.
Okay, we'll wrap up the PERS stories. We're going to move on now to revenue reform. I'm Wendy Johnson, the League's tax and finance lobbyist. You saw my 1-minute video on how I can explain property tax. We're going to have our third mayor come up and tell you how to explain it to a legislator in 2 minutes. I hope you're sensing a theme that you don't have to know these priorities in great detail. You just need to be able to tell your story on why it matters so you can explain to a legislator, another person in your community, why this priority matters to your community. So with that, Mayor Drossman from the city of Hermiston will explain property tax.
Can I back out of this now? Thank you. I'm going to share my advocacy recently with the Students for Success Tour on property tax. As a state, we continue to seek out new and innovative ways to increase revenue. I'd like to encourage the state to consider the current tools within their disposal to make improvements to the funding system that affects our schools and our cities similarly. We currently have a property tax system put in place 20 years ago that is failing our schools and our cities. It took all local control away from us financially and has placed the burden and responsibility on the state. Our costs are growing faster than the 3% inflationary cap. This biennium, 1/3 of tax to fund schools will be local, the state making up the difference. Prior to Measure 5 and 50, it was the reverse. The Hermiston School District specifically lost over $960,000 to property tax compression in 1 year. The schools are in a unique situation in that they are held harmless by compression because the state backfills those losses. However, the state's general fund is now 50% school support. A city's shortfall is not backfilled by the state. In the city of Hermiston, we lose $235,000 per year due to compression. That's an additional 2 police officers we could put on the street. And we've created a cannibalization of resources where we are all fighting for those additional dollars as new levies for valuable resources are passed. In Hermiston, we could lose an additional $200,000 due to a recently passed fire levy. We've also created a system that pits neighbor against neighbor, where one neighbor can vote in a tax that he doesn't have to pay, but the other neighbor does. The local control and fairness are gone. So I have 2 suggestions for the state. Number 1, get back to a real market assessment. Originally, assessed market value was meant to give a 10% discount. That discount has now grown to 35% on average across the state. That's an additional $200 billion of property value we could tax. It doesn't have to be done in 1 year. We could spread that over 10 years. Number 2, amend the caps up by $1 initially, generating an additional $800 million in next biennium for schools, and use that to buy down the PERS debt. Then tie future cap increases to an inflationary number like CPI. Unfortunately, we've lost the local control to make these changes. I would encourage the state to support cities and schools in this process because we are now dependent on you to fix that. Thank you.
Thanks you very much, Mayor Drotzman. So you'll fill out the revenue reform card. You'll notice in our priorities, we have 6 priorities. Number 2 is tax reform and cost containment. The membership voted for it that way. It's pretty simple math. If our costs keep going up and we do get revenue reform, it's just going to continue. It's just going to pay for PERS and our other high costs. We're not actually going to increase services. So we need to do both. We do need revenue reform, but we also have to maintain costs. So that's why it's a priority that has 2 parts. We broke them up today for your presentations, but it is one league priority. So go ahead and fill out the revenue card.
All right, that's time. I am Erin Doyle, one of the League's lobbyists. Up next, we are going to talk about 2 small subjects, housing and homelessness, and why they are our League priorities. We are having Mayor Clark from the City of Kaiser tell her story about why this became one of the League's priorities this year.
Thank you very much. Thank you all for being a part of this conversation. It should come as no surprise to any of you that the #1 cause of homelessness, #1, is the lack of family, relationships, and community to be there for a person, for each of us, when life is starting to run off the rails. Our communities in the Mid-Willamette Valley are deeply committed to being compassionate and generous. But even with that, we're falling farther and farther behind in caring for people, resulting in more and more homeless community members. And we realized that our nonprofits were doing the best that they could. They were trying to do what they do best, but they were working alone or sometimes in isolation. Also, some of them were working on things that they thought people needed, but didn't know what people needed. And they needed some good information to know how they could best use their resources to serve people effectively. My own City of Kaiser cannot meet the needs of the homeless in our own community by ourselves. Our services are partnered with the county, with the City of Salem, and with the agencies that serve our general area. And our shared urban growth boundary with Salem makes it imperative that we work together to deal with the severe housing shortage that we have within our combined urban growth boundary of all housing types. The lack of land, increased construction costs, and a growing gap between personal income and housing costs have made it impossible for many people to get and stay in housing. In this tight market, people with health, mental health, addictions, unemployment, and other barriers have even a harder time getting into, much less staying in housing. So locally, we created the Mid-Willamette Homeless Initiative Task Force. We met together for 1 year with the determined goal of creating a strategic plan of action. This was a partnership of Marion County Commissioner Janet Carlson, Polk County Commissioner Jennifer Wheeler, the City of Salem under then Mayor Anna Peterson and now Mayor Chuck Bennett, and myself for the City of Kaiser. Our goal was to create that strategic plan, which was adopted after 1 year of work, of listening to what people were doing, what people were needing, and the variety of services that are necessary for people to overcome barriers and be stable, housed, and cared for. But once you have a plan, what do you do with it? What we did was we hired a homeless coordinator who is now an employee of the Mid-Willamette Valley Council of Governments. The COG was a natural location for this position to be housed. It is an agency able to be a fiscal agent for state and federal funds. It is not competing for nonprofit funding, but rather can bring collaboration between the nonprofits and government agencies to better help each be successful in what they do well. I lost my place. But I got to tell you, one of the beautiful things we're seeing now is that the collaboration between the agencies, between our local governments, is growing every day. And the understanding, the deep understanding of what housing needs we have, the needs of our homeless community members, and the needs of our community at large are growing and deepening. The network is growing, and we are being successful in serving people in our community who have the greatest needs for stability, housing, homelessness, and relationship. In order to see the full potential of our homeless work and to improve affordable housing development, we need partnership and investment in locally created solutions from the state. All levels of government need to serve the needs of people. Because remember, homeless people are first and foremost people. Thank you very much.
So you're looking for your green card marked housing and homelessness. I'm sure you're all as equally as passionate as Mayor Clark. 3 minutes.
Okay, we are going to move on and hopefully kind of speed things up here as we're running a little short on time. I'm Tracy Rutten, the League's lobbyist that covers water issues, including water infrastructure. I've had the opportunity to work really closely with the City of Bend and many communities across the state on trying to tackle some of the infrastructure challenges that many of you are facing. So it is my pleasure to introduce Mayor Casey Rhodes from the City of Bend to talk about infrastructure.
I figured I'd bring my timer up here. Back at home at council meetings, I hold people to 3 minutes all the time. So if I can do it there, I can do it here. Well, thank you very much for having me, and I am here to speak on infrastructure and the importance for the need in the investment and such. And usually when we go to Salem, the City of Bend tries to come with a line that we need funding and help because we're special. And in my time in city council and in public service, we haven't gotten an especially long ways with that. But we do have some merits that Bend and Central Oregon, I think, can help lead other cities in helping finding solutions for themselves. I remember being a kid in the 1980s when I was growing up in Bend. When Neil Goldschmidt was running for governor, he got in trouble for wondering why they would have a debate there because it was the middle of nowhere. And we are no longer the middle of nowhere. We're certainly the middle of somewhere. And the Deschutes County, Tri-County region has been, for many years now, the third fastest growing region in the country, only behind Clark County, Nevada, and Miami-Dade in Florida. But in order to sustain that kind of growth and that kind of growth of our economy, we need water. And that is a problem, as it is for many of you around the state, but particularly east of the Cascades, as we all know. The beauty of the situation that we have in Central Oregon, though, is there are solutions, and there is water. We just simply have a funding problem. And for the cost of one interchange in I-5 somewhere around Portland to the tune of $200 or $300 million, Central Oregon and the state of Oregon could fix 100 years worth of mitigation projects and irrigation impacts that we've had on our river in the form of the Deschutes all these years. We as a city are making the case, I believe, as to why we and other cities like us, much like yours, I hope, are doing the work that we can do, working within our existing resources. For instance, the City of Bend received an award along with Ashland, Oregon, last year, and it was given by the Water Resources Department because we have been able to keep our per capita water consumption flatlined over the last 10 years inside the City of Bend because of the emphasis on conservation and better delivery systems and better advanced meter rating systems and things of that nature. The challenge we have as a community in Bend and in Central Oregon is that to sustain the growth that is inevitably coming our way in terms of 40,000 people in the next 20 years is the rough growth estimates, which is a tremendous per capita and percentage year-over-year growth, is that we have to put the water back in the river for any new gallon of water we take out of the ground. And that is where the cost comes in. And so when it comes to resiliency and when it comes to the cities like ours and like yours of being able to make the important investments we need to sustain our growth, our industries, our agriculture, our quality of life, infrastructure and resiliency around infrastructure is critical. So I will certainly be working with the league moving forward. And I just want to compliment the league, the staff, and all the cities for having a really well-rounded out set of priorities this year. I think they all serve off one another and work well. So it's my pleasure to be here. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. And with that, please take the blue card on your table, and we are going to cut it down to 2 minutes to fill that out for infrastructure. So get to writing.
Okay, time's up. Good afternoon. I'm Craig Honeyman, the Legislative Director for the League. So, notwithstanding that the Federal Communications Commission just this week seems to be in the business not only of preempting local authority in terms of broadband and authority, local broadband authority, but also perhaps state broadband legislative activity, the League needs to be ready to deal with whatever comes at us in the 2019 legislature in terms of broadband and telecommunications. So here to tell us a little bit about what's going on in Hillsborough is the mayor of that great city, Steve Calloway. Thank you.
So 10 reasons why broadband and fiber network are critically important to Hillsborough and why this is an important priority for us. First of all, it is an essential service. Second of all, affordable access. Many low-income residents don't have equitable broadband access. Third, cost savings. Hillsborough customers can save money on this essential service through the Hillsborough Fiber Network. Students, increasing access will help our Hillsborough students learn and maximize their potential, especially when they go back to a home that currently doesn't have internet at home. Businesses, high-speed service can help employers remain competitive and attract and retain talent. Smart city opportunities. Innovative strategies include optimizing traffic, energy utilities, parking, and community Wi-Fi. Net neutrality. City-provided internet service will be free from commercial pressure that restricts or redirects users and internet traffic. And lastly, customer service. The city already currently delivers outstanding service to Hillsborough residents and businesses through our water department, so we'll just keep continuing to do what we already do so well.
Thank you, Mayor Calloway. The White Card, Broadband Investment and Right-of-Way Authority, give us 2 minutes of your thoughts about the importance of those issues to your city. Thank you.
All right, thank you for working with us. You're about to hear about our last priority. Many of you might not know about this if you haven't been directly impacted by what's happening, but we're going to talk about third-party building inspections and why this is a priority for so many of our cities. But to preempt a question that I've been asked approximately 17 times, what do I do with my cards? Leave them on the table, we'll pick them up. To talk about third-party building inspectors, I want to introduce Mayor Gibson from King City to tell why this program is so important for his city.
Well, it's a pleasure being here. It's always a pleasure to talk about something that's near and dear to our hearts. And this really is near and dear to not just the city of King City, but I'm really speaking on behalf of a typical small city and what third-party inspections means to us. And just to kind of set the tone, King City is currently 4,800 in our population, and we have a staff of 11. That includes a city manager and a police chief. And third-party inspections have been part of our building process for many, many years, and it has worked seamlessly. We know that we can build and we can have efficiency in getting permits issued and also the inspections done. Now, I understand that there are issues surrounding this, but we would not feel comfortable unless the LOC was supporting us the way they are. We know how important it is to continue this process. As it stands now, over the last 2 years, we have built some additional developments, housing, single-family housing developments, 2 new apartment building complexes, and we have averaged a cost between $95,000 and $100,000 annually for that contracted services to do third-party inspections. If we were no longer able to have that opportunity, the cost would rise to about $500,000 annually. You figure that we have to set up, we have to have the infrastructure, equipment, and all of those things to hire a staff to do these inspections, and it is a budget breaker for most small cities. And it's something that we're very concerned about. We know that it is something that we have to deal with. If we were in a situation where we had that larger city, it might make a difference, but we know that this could have an impact to the larger cities as well. Now, we would only have 2 options. One option would be to hire, and that's that $500,000 annual ticket. The other option that we would have is a contract with a larger city. The issue with that may be we lose our efficiency. We have not skipped a beat in using that third-party building inspection operation, but when you start sharing all of those resources, it definitely will have an impact on our ability to get the things done. Now, King City is already built out. Basically, we have 2 lots left. But we do have a request into Metro for urban to go into our urban growth boundaries. If approved, within the next 5 years, we're going to be doing a lot of building, and we're looking forward to that. But we do want to have that control to use third-party building inspectors. The one thing that happened this morning, I was in a meeting with the CEO of PGE, and one of the things that Maria Pope said is that they really appreciate the efficiency of small cities and the permitting process, because when we call in PG&E or PGE, that was a California slip because PG&E is California. Now you guys know my background. So, but when PGE is called out to do inspections and related to building and permitting, she said very clearly that the small cities have a tendency to be much more efficient with this process than the larger cities, and it's because of this ability to use third-party building inspectors. So I thank LOC for their support, and I think it's very important that we have that support as we move forward to keep this opportunity going. It's a tool in our toolbox that we must have. So thank you very much.
While you might not be using third-party inspection programs, you might want to have absolute control over how you budget and how you do the work you do. So if you do not have a third-party inspection story, please take the next 1 minute to share why local control helps cities work.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for participating in this, as Mike referred to it, this speed dating with regard to our legislative priorities. We've kept you over time. I appreciate your staying with us. To close, just a few words. This has been sort of the first exercise in getting you involved in advocating for these priorities. Let me just say, we want you to be preemptive. Government is often, state government's also often preemptive of you. We'd like you to be preemptive in the sense we want you to take these priorities and tell your stories to your legislators early. We want you to be thinking about what your messages are going to be and get those written messages in terms of testimony or letters that you might want to write to your legislators. Get them in the can early. Be prepared at a moment's notice to come to Salem, to talk to your legislators, or to lobby, or to testify when we call. Another concept or another thought I want to put in your head is to change the paradigm of the League of Oregon Cities is calling you to come to Salem or asking you to convey messages to legislators on behalf of the League of Oregon Cities. I want you to put that out of your head. I want you to think going forward that you're doing it for yourself. You're doing it for your own cities. because our messages hopefully are going to be the same, and we're going to provide you with the data, the information that you need to provide a consistent message. But the most important messages you can impart are those like the stories that you're writing on those cards today, the stories that come from your heart, from your local citizens that are impactful, how our priorities are impactful to your cities. So let's blow up the old paradigm of I'm here to lobby on behalf of the League of Oregon Cities. No, you're here, or you're in Salem, or you're conveying a message to your legislator on behalf of your city. Lobby for your city first. So at your place, you have cards that are promoting two events, or a series of events. On the card on the blue side is a schedule of LOC advocacy workshops. This is a series of events that are going to take the place of the old City Hall Week, where the League barnstormed the state to talk about the League's legislative priorities. We're going to be doing that, but it's going to be a different program. I won't go into the details in the interest of time now as to how that's going to work, but it's going to be a program that we put on that's a deeper dive into these legislative priorities and also an advocacy workshop. The schedule is outlined for you on the blue side of the card. On the yellow side of the card is a save the date piece referencing City Day at the Capitol. Some of you, hopefully all of you, are familiar with that. It's going to take place on January 24th, the first week of the legislative session, and afford you the opportunity to do some firsthand lobbying with your legislators in the Capitol building on our legislative priorities. Finally, track us during the legislative session using our media, the LOC Bulletin, of course, the bill tracker system that we have in place, the new League website, which will be premiering very soon, social media, and our city-focused podcast, which also is a new item that will be available to you in the very near future. And then finally, there we are. That's your lobby team. You've seen them all today. That's how you can get in touch with us. They are a very professional, very effective group, but we can't do it without you, which is why we're here today and why we're going to be calling on you in the future. Thank you for being here today. Let's go get them in Salem in January of 2019.